So 2.5 years ago, I put down the phone absolutely shattered, knowing that I had missed my brother's ADHD diagnosis for 25 years of his life. This was my player too. This was my brother who I'd spent hundreds of hours playing sport and video games with. And I thought to myself, hey, is this just me or is this a more widespread problem? I'm a GP in the Sutherland Shire. I'm a mid career fellow now. And that was where my Future Leaders project came from. The Future Leaders program is something the RSCGP runs, and I'd highly recommend it. And I thought I would share with you guys my project. So today there's no special guest, it's just Chris, and we're going to talk about my project. So this is ADHD at your GP, accessible, affordable, and effective care. The call that I got about my brother's missed ADHD diagnosis really did change my career because ADHD misdiagnosis is a huge problem. And there's been a lot of work over the last 12 months on it, but there's still a huge problem there. There are high fees, long waiting lists, particularly in some states, although some states are really striving ahead and making GP care accessible. When we started at Kirrawee and Wollaware, where I worked, there was significant issues. There was long waits, more than 12 months wait to see a psychiatrist. Pediatricians were a little better, but often still very long waits and no possibility of crisis appointments. There was limited awareness of co-management. There were medication shortages throughout the year, and there were prohibitively high costs. These patients were putting off their journey of diagnosis because the costs were extreme. When we started, about 177 of our patients had documented ADHD, and we were prescribing for 25 of those. In New South Wales, at that time, the option was to co-manage or transfer care completely from a specialist, which required a significant amount of documentation, but it could be done. And I got this letter back from a specialist one day that really got my goat. It was a patient of mine who's a 21-year-old who's very stable on medication. And some weeks they cannot afford to put money into the petrol bowser, to put petrol in their car, and to drive to work at Macca's. And the plan for this patient was to see a pediatrician to the age of 25 and then to transfer to a psychiatrist for reassessment at a prohibitive cost. And that's not good care. We can manage this in primary care. It is quite doable. So we came up with the excellent GP ADHD clinic journey. And there's a lot on this slide, but what I want you to focus on are the 4 key points, which are 1, a streamlined low barrier intake. Get them in, get them assessed, and move on. 2, comprehensive workup for specialist referral. Now, this has changed a bit over this year, but at the time we had to do a bunch of tests to facilitate their referral. There is some discussion about which of those tests is really needed, but I'll get to that. 3, integrated care with specialists, including ADHD coaches, psychologists, and psychiatrists or pediatricians. And finally, 4, seamless return to GP management, where a large percentage of these patients are safely managed. We found all our stakeholders, so we looked at our stakeholders, including the RACGP, the PHNs, the PSU, politicians, the ADPA, local allied health professionals, coaches, psychiatrists, pediatricians, and of course, our patients. And the first thing that my patients told me was, look, Chris, screening tests are expensive or clunky. So we built our own website with simple questionnaires they can do in my waiting room if they forget to fill their form in. Some non-GP specialists didn't want to co-manage with us, and that's okay, but we found the ones who did, and we referred there exclusively. Telehealth clinics had caused our patients some frustration, so we worked with them to have better pathways and better co-management arrangements so that they could have treatment. Our patients lacked online social media content that was reliable, so I thought, Struth, I've got a microphone, I'll do this. And we spun off a new channel from my main channel. Our registrars, and not just our registrars, but generally a lot of registrars are hesitant to treat ADHD, which is fair. They're still learning a lot of general practice. There are some who are really keen, there are some just average, and there are some who are not keen. And that's all okay. That spectrum is all fine, but we offer the chance for upskilling. And we put ours through internal teaching sessions as well as taking them to the AADPA conference. And part of that was paid for through a grant that we obtained through the PHN, which was really great. And that helped us put in place some telehealth infrastructure, an intake coordinator to streamline those appointments, an iPad for screening questionnaires, and sensory toys. And then 6 months into the year, this huge change came and the New South Wales government said, hey, we're going to let GPs do a lot more ADHD care. And this is a beautiful photo from the clinic I work at where my boss is taking the blood pressure of one of my former registrars, who's now a fellow treating her own ADHD patients. We had the opportunity at New South Wales GPs at Parliament to speak with the Minister, Ryan Park, the Health Minister for New South Wales, and he was great. He's actually had so much positive feedback on the ADHD reforms. We were talking about the flu vaccine, I believe, in this photo, and telling him as a dad I was very happy the intranasal flu vaccine was coming along, and he agreed. Current state of affairs. When my Future Leaders project finished, we had about 400 patients with documented ADHD on our books. That has gone up a lot. And we're prescribing for about 200 of those. There are reliable share care pathways for those patients who we do need some extra help. And there will be patients that you need extra help with, whether it's addiction issues, whether it's complex psychiatric care, or whether it's just a second opinion on that kid that you're not 100% sure on. All of these are now easier to access. We have a number of tier one prescribers in New South Wales. We have over 10 of those at our clinics. And we were fortunate enough to be finalists in the PHN Awards. And then we were lucky enough to win the Excellence in General Practice Award at the PHN. And as part of the Future Leaders program, you pitch this to a panel of very esteemed GP colleagues. For my panel, there were a number of esteemed colleagues, including Nicole Higgins and Dr. Michael Wright, who I'd crossed paths with previously. And it's always worth meeting those stakeholders. You never know where you run into them. And if you meet people, it just makes it. What's the call to action here? So there's a lot going on. There's a lot of change, a lot of reform. National consistency would be great so that people don't have difficulties when they transfer states. The RACGP is working on that. Funding for training registrars and fellows. This is a new area. It would be good to have upskilling funding. It is great the modules on the RACGP's website are free for RACGP members. And research on GP implementation. There is so much need to do a good study showing this is safe and effective care. And together we can make a world where ADHD treatment is as accessible, affordable, and effective at the GP as blood pressure management. And looking at the Health of the Nation report from this year, which showed just how many GPs are managing ADHD, but also things that a specialist that is not a GP would normally manage, I think we've never been closer than that.